Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have another wonderful guest. We have Robert from Waco. How you doing today, Robert?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, doing well. I know that we'd met a few months back, and it's great to reconnect, and glad to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, Robert, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. I'm a Waco resident, born and raised here. Been here most of my life, aside from a few years in the Marine Corps. Right now, I'm doing real estate, fixing and flipping houses, looking to get in a buy and hold, as well as I'm working part time in law enforcement for the McLean County Sheriff's Office. I'm also going to school full time on the GI Bill at Charleston State University. That's mostly online. And most importantly, I'm a husband and a father of two children.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. Absolutely. It sounds like you're wearing a lot of different hats, and I'm sure you have a lot on your plate, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious as well. You'd mentioned, growing up in Waco. Did you have any idea you wanted to be in real estate, or kind of when did your interest in real estate start?
I definitely had no idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do. That's why one of the big reasons I joined the Marine Corps, so I could figure that out because I knew I was going to flunk out of college right away. Um, no, so I was actually in the Marine Corps. I got out, got married. Me and my wife, we lived in Tennessee for a bit, and we moved to Austin, so I could start going to school. I was planning on transferring to UT actually for the engineering program. And while I was at the community college there in Austin, I met a gentleman in the Air Force, and we started studying together. We had some calculus classes or something like that, and physics classes, and so we started studying together and everything. And he had told me that he bought a duplex right before he got out of the Air Force. So he used his income to put down to get a loan, to get approved for a VA loan uh, for a duplex. And he said that he lived in one side and rented out the other side and took care of it and everything. And I was just like, that just blew my mind. I was like, what? You can do that? Like, no way. And so I thought that was kind of neat, but didn't really do much else with that information. Kept going to school. My daughter was born, and um, man, staying up all night with a newborn and trying to do calculus and trigonometry and physics and thermodynamics. I got my butt kicked, and so we moved back to Waco to be a little closer to family to help with the kiddos, and that way I could start going to school at MCC. I just really quickly figured out that my wife had a lot of student debt, and I very quickly figured out that unless I started making some large chunks of change, I wasn't gonna get anywhere on it. And so I remember what my friend had told me about real estate, about that duplex, and I was like, well, man, I could maybe do that or something. So I started looking for real estate information online. Came across Bigger Pockets Network. Don't mean to plug them, but and so people kept talking about this Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and so I bought that and I read it. Put the book down, and told my wife, "Hey, I'm buying real estate. We're doing it. We're gonna get a duplex, and we're gonna rent out one side, and I'm gonna flip houses and yada yada yada." Never bought that duplex, but I did flip a few houses. I got about a year's worth of just studying and analysis paralysis while I was going to school and working, and I wasn't doing anything. And finally, I said, okay, I gotta start meeting people, getting out there. And so I joined a local real estate meetup and went. No idea what I was doing. And I met a gentleman there who ran a meetup in Temple, and I was like, well, it's not that far from me. It's only a 45-minute drive, so I started going to that meetup. And met enough people, started finding deals, and started doing deals. So
Absolutely. No, it's interesting as well, kind of how that seed was planted, by that gentleman that was in the Air Force. Maybe y'all had some commonalities studying together, but it doesn't seem like it hit you until later on. Was there any sort of aha moment that really hit you and said, "Hey, this is a path for me"?
uh man, I don't know. I think it was kind of a slow thing, but finishing up Rich Dad Poor Dad, I feel like that was definitely like when I put that down, I was like, okay, that's it. And I actually read like the second or third book, but I was like, now it's just a pitch fest. He's just trying to sell me on the Kiyosaki program, whatever. So I'm done with that. But I think that working when I was in Tennessee, right out of the Marine Corps, I was working night shift, and that was awful. It was a good job, just working nights. My body couldn't adjust. And then, so I got out and went to college, started doing that, and it was better for a while. And then I come back to Waco, start working for the sheriff's office at on a full-time status. And I was on night shift again. And I was like, man, I can't do this. I can't do this forever, the night shift business. And the problem is, with law enforcement, I love the job. I love the sheriff's office. I love, McLean County. But the problem is, once you work your way up and you get promoted, well, now you're the new, say, corporal or the new sergeant. So guess where you're going? Right back to night shift. After building the seniority to get to days. And I was like, I can't. So I started going back to school, and, I started listening to the bigger pocket stuff and the real estate stuff. And I'd say it was just kind of a slow, gradual, I just kind of started figuring out, hey, to get any headway on this debt, to be able to buy the land that me and my family want to retire on, or functionally retire, I'm going to have to get in, make some big chunks of change. And real estate was the only way to do it that I know of. It still is. I mean, if other than maybe betting on Bitcoin or something, but, I'm not, capable of that. So I'm brave enough, I guess, for that.
No, absolutely. And, it kind of seems like, I mean, really anyone, the human body can only tolerate so much sleep deprivation. Like you said, you're coming out of the Marine Corps, and, it's tough for your body to adjust to that new sleep schedule. It almost kind of sounds like the rich dad, poor dad avenue was kind of maybe your path to freedom, but for the life, kind of the direction that you wanted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really, I mean, that's my happy place, is just being with my family. And so if, real estate seemed like the most feasible opportunity to give me more time with my family. And even if that means I got to be working in my office, at least if I'm sitting here for an hour and get tired, or spazzy, I can go out and jump with my kids on the trampoline for a little bit or something, or pull weeds in the garden, just whatever. So anything that just gets me with my family, and like I said, real estate just seemed like the most feasible option.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting as well because, I mean, I know that social media can be pretty loud. You're seeing all these pretty pictures. You're kind of seeing all this lifestyle stuff. And really, it kind of seems like people really just kind of want the time and the freedom as opposed to a Lambo or a Ferrari.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm still driving a 2006 Ford Ranger I paid off in the Marine Corps. I pulled the engine out of it myself last year and put it back in, and it's kind of funny because it has I buy houses magnet on it, and I imagine people driving by just being like, yeah, right, he can't afford a decent truck. But, I have no desire for the luxuries like that. They're just, land is about the only luxury I want, a lot of it. Other than that, I'm happy roughing it in my Ranger and in my wife's Honda Accord.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm curious, more so about your interest in land. I mean, what is it about land? Is it the space? Are you going to use it for farming or ranching? Or, what is it about land that you like?
Well, I'm a country boy. I grew up out here on the Brazos River. My dad owned a few acres on the Brazos River, so I grew up being able to go out back and hunt and fish whenever I wanted. And it's something I love, and just having that connection to the land. And that's something I want to share with my children. Absolutely. So, I've actually, this morning I was in a meeting with a small business center here in the community college. They have a small business center. And with the land, we kind of want to do like a hospitality business, actually. So I'm working real estate into that too, right? So we would have our homestead on it, maybe a few hundred acres. And then I kind of want to build a couple of Airbnb cabins out there, and rent those out. And be able to work towards, a few $100 a night to be able to let people stay in the cabins and just have a whole experience with our family, just kind of living how we live, whether it be gardening, hunting, fishing, kayaking, horseback riding, ATV riding, just all kinds of attractions to be able to bring in that high price per night. So that is my job, is just being with my family and running the Airbnbs.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a great vision to have. And it comes at such an interesting time too, because I mean, 2020 was weird. We were locked up, with all these strange rules and all these different things like that. But at the end of the day, it kind of seems like, being on the land, it's like one of the most fundamental parts of being human, you know, connecting to the land. You talked about the hunting, the fishing, and being in that environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's just that's just my goal. There's nothing else. I don't, want big fancy house or fancy cars or anything like that. I just want to be on land. I want my kids to grow up with that appreciation, to see where their food comes from. Understand it doesn't just come from a grocery store. Or, that chicken that you're eating, that was a life, and it had to be taken so that we could eat. So
Yeah, Robert, it's funny you said, because just a little while ago we were just talking about we called it the chicken breast culture, right? So you go into HEB and you see all these chicken breasts, but you never see the beak, you never see the face, and a lot of people forget that, hey, that's an animal, right?
absolutely, yeah. I wonder if my kids even understand that really now. We have some backyard chickens, and actually one of them's not doing so well, so they might learn really quickly where chicken meat comes from. Um, but yeah, that's a big one for me, and we're so blessed too that we are able to. My dad lives just down the road on the Brazos River, and we're able to go out there during all these lockdowns and stuff, and the kids could catch fireflies and frogs, and we could hop on the kayaks and go catch fish and stuff like that. We're so blessed to have that. A lot of the people, I could just imagine being trapped in somewhere like New York, in a little apartment, not being able to leave. That would be rough for me, for sure.
Yeah, completely. And it makes me thankful for, growing up here in Texas and, frankly, being around a lot of available land.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of expanded our search. We're even looking possibly Missouri, Arkansas. They've got a lot of great national parks out there. So if we can border a national park, that much more land to explore and that much more to attract people into our Airbnbs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful vision to have. And I'm curious as well. I guess your means of getting there would be the real estate deals. If you wouldn't mind, could you kind of talk about maybe what your first real estate deal was and maybe how you found it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that one's really exciting. So okay, so I'll take it back. So after for a while there, I was going to real estate meetups and meeting people. And a gentleman I met in Temple, he was running a marketing campaign in McLennan County and oh man, what is Temple County? Why can't I think of that right now? Bell County?
Is that Bell, right?
Bell, I think it's Bell
I know
County.
Colleen's Bell.
Yeah, I believe so too. But he was running this huge mailing campaign through a third party marketer, and he had more leads coming in than he knew what to deal with. He had a guy in Waco working with him too, trying to follow up on the Waco or the McLennan County leads, and even he couldn't keep up. It was just a really good time, I guess. And I think he was hitting mostly non-resident owners, or absentee owners, if you will. And so he started sending me leads. I guess he met me and something about him. I guess he had nothing to lose, right? I mean, he's giving me the free leads. He said, "Hey, if you do some deals with the money, just toss me some money." I mean, that was kind of as informal as it was, like, "Hey, if you do a deal, just give me something." And I was like, "Surely, the leads, you paid a lot of money for this marketing." Absolutely. And so he sends me one, and I'm following up with them, and I didn't have a lot of luck until I came across one lead out in Bosque County. Actually, I forgot he was marketing in Bosque County as well. There's a little town called Moshin, and I had never heard of it. I don't know many people that have. It's out towards Whitney. But I went ahead and called up. I was like, well, I owe it to this guy to call. It's at the very least. And I wasn't expecting much of it. Well, the guy on the phone, tells me, "Hey, the house is in pretty good shape. It needs some sheetrock work in the kitchen, and some might need a new roof, things like that." And he said I'd be willing to take 120,000 for it. I was like, okay, well, I'm looking at it on the CAD, and the CAD, the county appraisal district had it listed for 180, and I was like, whoa, okay, we might have something here. And it just so happens I had met a gentleman who specialized in rural properties. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll drive on out there. And so I drove out there and saw the house. It was great. It had a mother-in-law's cabin. It really didn't need that much work. For once, I mean, the seller was telling the truth. It didn't need that much work. So I was like, whoa, okay. So I went back home. I told him, I'll get you an offer the next day. And keep in mind, I'd never done anything in real estate at this point. So, I was like, well, I'm gonna swing for the fences. So I called him back. I was like, man, I think I can pay 70 for this. And, from 120 down to 70, I don't know how that felt for him, but he come back right away and he said, man, I couldn't do any less than 90. I need at least 90 to be able to buy my next property and get the family on it and stuff and do what we want to do. I was like, all right, well, kind of acted bummed out, and I was like, all right, well, we'll do 90. And so I drove out there with a contract. Again, I had no idea what I was doing. Watched a YouTube video and learned how to fill out the Texas 1 to 4 family residential contract. Filled that out, let them see it, went over it with them, turned it in. And then I called the gentleman that I had met at the Waco meetup that specialized in rural properties. I said, hey, I got this property. Here's the county appraisal district on it. Here's some pictures. Doesn't look like it needs a whole lot of work. Here's what I got in a contract for. And he said, I'm not interested. It's like, oh no. Is that well, I'm not interested. I can't buy it right now. I got too much stuff. I got too much money out right now. And he said, but I know somebody who will buy it. All right. So he put me on the phone with another guy. And so I just met another seller, and sure enough, he went out and saw the property, and everything actually went pretty smooth. I closed on it, made $3,000 on it, which to me was amazing, because it just made the whole thing real. Looking back on it, I might have been able to get more, but I was just ecstatic to be able to make that kind of money on it. So I wrote a check to the gentleman that had passed along the lead, sent it to him in the mail. He got it a couple days later, and I think he was excited and surprised. And so he just kind of opened the floodgates on the leads for me. But that first deal, that was my first wholesale deal. And that was just great. I still remember leaving the title company with the check in my hand. And it just made it real. I mean, at that point I was like, okay, I can do this. I can make money, and just started doing more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a testament of I guess of faith, right? You just putting one foot in front of the other. You don't really know what you're doing. You bring the contractor out, you're on YouTube, and then you make it happen, right?
Absolutely. And after that too, I had the confidence. I was like, well, if I can kind of BS my way through that one, I mean, what can I do now?
Yeah.
And so the next thing for me was just actually buying a fix and flip. So that was my next kind of goal. And I think I did a couple more wholesales before my first fix and flip. But at that point, I mean, the wholesales were like, okay, it was easy. I got it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious about that transition, right? Because you're kind of having, I would imagine you're making kind of a psychological shift, right? From the world of wholesaling to actually doing the flips.
So yeah, and it happened really quickly. I mean, flips were always kind of the end goal. But like you hear everywhere, I was like, I'll wholesale a little bit, put some capital back, and then get into a flip. And even to this day, when I'm doing my own marketing, I'll still wholesale. If I can't buy it, or it's not my particular type of deal, maybe say it'd be better for like buy and hold, I'll wholesale it. So the transition, it wasn't like, some hard transition where now I'm only doing, fix and flips. And that's how I find most investors are, especially when they're doing their own marketing. You can only buy so much.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, I mean, you just said it right. Like it's good that you didn't really abandon the wholesaling aspect. You kind of just transitioned to the flips, but you were still doing the wholesaling too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm curious as well. I mean, you've talked about the wholesaling and the flips, what's next for you?
Well, I buy and hold. I got into real estate with a long-term game of like, man, if I can just, own a few dozen rentals, it's say $200 cash flow per door, that's retirement money right there. Never mind the equity buildup and all the options that come with that. But I have yet to actually do any buy and hold. That's what I'm hoping to get into. But as I start to build, I guess, an account, I guess, start to have some of those profits, sitting back. And I look at the liability aspect of it and stuff. What's starting to look more appealing to me is actually owner financing. So I guess we'll just have to see what comes my way. I'm certainly open to rentals, and I do want to have some rentals at the very least for the tax write-offs. But I'm still attracted to rentals because of the equity buildup. the tax write-offs, the appreciation, that asset is still yours, as opposed to when you own or finance it. Now it's legally someone else's. You're just holding a note on it. So.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. And for those of us who aren't too familiar with the term or kind of the strategy of it, what is owner financing, and why is it appealing to you?
So owner financing is when basically you finance the house for somebody. You are the bank. Now, typically, everyone I've seen who's done it, they've either done a subject to deal where they're taking over someone else's mortgage. In exchange, they're making the payments on it. The person that is having their mortgage taken over, their credit is not getting completely wrecked by a foreclosure or something of that nature. And in fact, their credit's actually being built up. Or they're buying the house and getting lending through a bank, some kind of good conventional mortgage, really getting good terms, and they're turning around and selling it for a little bit higher interest rate and a down payment, and financing it to agreed upon terms, and they're just collecting the difference. They're collecting their mortgage payment every month, and then they're paying off the bank and keeping the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And, it sounds like another good tactic to kind of have in your arsenal, right? You have the wholesaling, the flips, the owner financing, and then of course your buy and holds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir. And, forgot to mention too, with the owner financing, I mean, you're essentially removing yourself from a lot of the liability that comes with owning a rental property. Because, if you do this for a little bit and meet people and stuff, you're going to hear some horror stories about rentals. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, some people are all about it. Others, they really shy away because they kind of picture, hey, I don't want to be the guy that gets to call at 3 a.m. to unclog the toilet, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing too that I'm going to go ahead and just learn from other people's experience. I told myself when I started buying, buy and holds, I'm going to start running the rentals myself. I'm going to start managing them myself to get experience on them. And I'm like, that's going to help me hold management companies accountable, yada, yada. But, man, the more stories I hear, the more I just don't want to do it. The more that I think I'm going to definitely offload that responsibility to a management company.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, at least, when I've spoken to investors that we work with, it's more of, they'll say, hey, well, I don't want to pay the percentage, 10% or whatever it is to the management company. But you also think about, your own time that you could be doing other deals, right, that you're spending on that property.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've met investors that manage themselves and they've just gotten tapped out. They got, say, 16 doors and they're like, that's all I can manage. I can't buy anymore. But they're still, maybe they're going into those deals, they didn't figure in the cost of management. And so they can't really afford to hire management now, at this point. So they're kind of in limbo. And so just going into deals, I'm going to factor in, 10% for management, and, the 10% for maintenance and repairs and all that jazz. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious as well, you talked about, maybe how you started with the wholesaling and the flips as well. Maybe someone, is sitting on a bit of cash and they kind of want to know where to turn, maybe for a new investor, where do they even start?
Oh gosh. Networking for me, that was what it was, everything. It's just networking. I mean, that's how I started getting access to leads. That's how I got access to capital for my first fix and flip. That's how I got access to my buyers. So networking is a big one. And then starting out, even if you have a pile of cash sitting back, I would say a wholesale deal or two is a great way to go. You have no liability going into it. You're going to familiarize yourself with the closing process, things of that nature. Wholesaling is definitely a good place to start. That's kind of cliche. That's what everybody says, but that I gained so much confidence just at that first wholesale. And then, next to that, I one thing I didn't mention, I met at my, these real estate meetups, was the partner that I partnered with on my first fix and flip, and having his experience and his credibility going into it was a big reason of how I was able to secure lending, but also it gave me the confidence to say, okay, my numbers look good on this. If this guy agrees, he's been doing it for a long time, and a lot of people, a lot of older investors, they're happy to show you the ropes and partner with you because they're getting 50% of the deal, So he partnered up with me, and man, I found a great partner. He showed me the ropes. He let me make mistakes, none that were going to cost us too much, but I had this fantasy about, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to save us a bunch of money by doing a lot of the work myself. But that was wow. I didn't mind doing the work so much as, I had all my other responsibilities as well. And then, the extra time that it took me in there doing some of this work by myself, we could have just as easily hired somebody to do it, maybe paid, a little more to have it done, but we just saved money on the debt service, I guess, because it was a hard money loan. So it was, 1% a month. But yeah, find a partner, find somebody who's done it that has done it successfully. And I feel like it really won't be all that hard to find if you start going to these meetups and meeting folks to find someone who wants to partner with you and show you the ropes.
Yeah, definitely well said there. It's easy to kind of go in head first and think that you can reinvent the wheel there, but if someone else is experienced, you may as well, ride along with them, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I, I'd say I would like to say I learned my lesson to listen to experience, but we'll find out. That's something only time will tell, because, we all have our ideas about how we think things should go and stuff. And so I guess we'll find out if I learn to listen to experience once I start getting into buy and hold or some other deals.
Yes, sir. That's right. Only time will tell. Well, Robert, is there anything that you haven't said, so far that you really just like to hit home for us?
No, I mean, I will say my first fix and flip. I forgot to mention, this is something kind of interesting. That lead cost me about 75 cents. So my wife was actually driving for dollars. There's a park in Woodway down here, and that's kind of a nice community. It's kind of an older community, and they're very tight with their zoning laws, and so it's a nice community. But my wife takes the kids to a park there, and once they get tired from running around, she loads them up in the car. They fall asleep, and so she just drives for dollars, essentially looking for deals. And she came across a house that it had all the signs of being abandoned. And this was a humongous 2-story house on a corner lot. There was notices on the front door. Grass was, all crazy. Fence looked to be in disrepair. There was a hole in the brick, in the second story. The garage door was covered in plywood. And so I wrote a letter to the owner, and just saying, hey, I buy houses, looks like this house could use some repairs. If you're interested, give me a call. Didn't hear anything for like 2 weeks. And then I get a call. And so I called up the partner. This is only the second, this would have only been my second fix and flip. So I called up my partner that I worked with before. Like, man, it's a big job. I don't want to take this on by myself. I don't even know if I could get access to enough capital. And so we went and checked it out, talked to the lady. This lady had been cheated out of like $80,000 by a contractor. And so the contractor come in there and messed up a bunch of stuff and put a lot of cheap stuff in this house, and it was just awful for her. And unfortunately, we weren't actually able to come to a deal. But she said, hey, I've got a friend it's actually a business partner, but her and her husband are moving to Houston. They need to sell their house pretty quick, and they don't feel like fixing it up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I started salivating. So went out to Lorena and checked out this house, and that deal worked out, and that ended up being my first fix and flip. I think I'd mentioned that was the Woodway house is my second fix and flip. That would have been my second real estate deal. Sorry. But my first fix and flip ended up being that next house that I met her. So it was, I think, I say it cost me 75 cents. It was maybe 25 cents for the envelope and the piece of paper and 50-cent stamp, and I sent the mail. And so to this day, I still do that. If I'm driving by and I see a house, like, whoa, I hit a mailer real quick and hand write it and everything. So, it's hopefully going to get opened and drop it in the mail. So you just never know. And that's why I try and tell people, you got to throw a wide net and just hope to catch something.
That's right. There's, that's a story of persistence. And like you said, just throwing that wide net and seeing what happens, right?
Yep. And I'll tell you, doing that too, with the handwritten letters, you also got to have some thick skin. I've even done some door knocking, and, a lot of times you got to have some thick skin because apparently, a postcard or a little envelope asking if someone's interested in selling their house is really offensive. So I've gotten some pretty outrageous phone calls from people that were very upset, talking about their lawyer and step foot on my property again. And, things are going to happen and all this and that. So at times you got to have some thick skin and just understand that, people are going to be offended. And sometimes they're stressed out. They got other things going on, so just don't take anything personally and just keep trying.
Yep, absolutely. That's definitely a definite story of persistence, right? But yeah, Robert, maybe someone's in the Waco area, they're somewhere else in Texas. They're also maybe they're in another part of the country. They're interested in your part of your neck of the woods, your part of Texas. Where can we find you?
I got a website coming up here pretty soon. I think I sent you the link to that. But it's the website link I sent you will work, but recently my wife didn't like the domain, so we got another one. So both websites will lead you to the same, or both domains will lead you to the same website. But there's rpinvestmentswaco.com. There's also, I think I gave you my email. More than happy to send that out. It's just rr.pfenninger, my last name, @gmail.com. And anybody that wants to reach out, I've done some long distance wholesales. Anybody wants to reach out, I'm more than happy to listen to anything you got. Or if you're interested in putting up capital, or you have access to a deal and need somebody to run it for you, I'm more than happy to do that. But that's my email. And then I'll give you all my other contact, my business line. I'm more than happy to share that on social media. My wife kind of takes care of that side of it. So I'll get you in touch with her so y'all can share all that and through your podcast and let everybody see where they can get a hold of me.
Yes, sir. Sounds great, Robert. We've covered a lot of ground here, talked a bit about your background, you kind of moving around a bit to you putting one foot in front of the other, doing that first wholesale, your first flip, a bit about different strategies, owner finance, and much more, right? So it's been a real pleasure having you on, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This was fun. This is actually my first time doing this, so hopefully I didn't look too nervous or say anything too crazy. But I appreciate your time, sir, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, Robert. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you. Bye.